Okay.
I'm gonna let the person from the lobby in, the member of the public.
Okay, great. Okay. All right. Excuse me. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the March 26, 2026 meeting of the Seattle Planning Commission. I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. As we begin our meeting, we respectfully acknowledge that our meeting today is taking place on occupied Coast Salish land. We pay respect to the Coast Salish elders, past and present, and extend that respect to their descendants and to all Indigenous people. To acknowledge this land is to recognize the history of physical and cultural genocide and settler colonialism, which continues to displace Indigenous people today. It is also to recognize these lands, waters, and their significance for the resilient, wise people who continue to thrive in this region, despite the consequences of displacement and broken treaties. Those who hold settler privilege in this city must work towards supporting the Coast Salish people and all Indigenous people using the various forms of wealth and privilege that we reap due to it. My name is Matt Hutchins. I use he, him pronouns, and I am one of the chairs of the Seattle Planning Commission, along with Zio Alvarez. Okay.
Sorry, Matt.
That's all right. Okay. Got some announcements. We're happy to make all commission meetings open to the public, and please note that the Planning Commission does not hold public hearings per se, since the commission is an advisory body. We provide recommendations to elected leaders who in turn have the responsibility with the actual decisions. We encourage individuals and organizations to make their comments appropriately to elected officials as well. This meeting is a hybrid meeting with one individual participating at the boards and commissions room at the Seattle City Hall, and the rest of us are remote. Thank you, Michaela. Now I'd like to jump to the Color Brave space norms, and I'd like to invite one commissioner to choose and briefly speak to one of our norms as they feel that has particular relevance to today's agenda. And let's see, let's start with that. Any volunteers here?
Hey, this is Dylan. I can go for a sec. And a thought on the, I think practicing examining the racially biased systems. As I was starting to dig into the plan for Northgate, there's some really intentional language in there about centering kind of the future development, the future plan, the future vision for Northgate area around principles of Indigenous peoples. And so I think that is, I think this, again, practicing kind of examining our racially biased systems, how we've been growing, and being truthful and honest, and bringing those that have been kind of disadvantaged in the past into the conversation and centering them in the conversation is really important. And I was heartened to see a lot of intentionality behind that in this Northgate plan.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any amendments or modifications to the Color Brave space norms that anyone would like to suggest? Okay, then I suggest that we all agree to these norms. All right, round of introductions, excuse me. Again, I am Matt Hutchins. I use he, him pronouns. I live in West Seattle, and my day job is as an architect. Let's see, Zio, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
You bet.
All right. Zio Alvarez and she, they pronouns. I live in White Center, Highland Park, and my day job is at Alden Architects in downtown Seattle. That's to Rose.
Morning, all. I'm Rose Lucia-Lowitson, pronouns they, them. I'm up north in the Licton Springs, Northgate transition area. And for my day job, I'm a wetland biologist and permitting specialist with Jacobs Engineering. I'll pass to Rebecca.
Morning all, Rebecca Brown, she, her pronouns. I live in the Crown Hill, Whittier Heights area, and my day job is working on transit-oriented development for Sound Transit. And I will pass it to Nick.
Morning all, and apologies, my camera's not working right now. My name is Nick Whipple. I use he, him pronouns. I live in West Seattle in the North Del Ridge neighborhood. And for my job, day job, I'm a city planner on the east side. How about Cecilia?
Good morning. I'm Cecilia. She, her pronouns. I live in Capitol Hill neighborhood. And for my day job, I'm an ADA specialist at King County. And I will pass to Caleb.
Good morning. My name is Caleb Toolday, he, him pronouns. I live in Beacon Hill and I'm an educator at Rainier Scholars. I'll pass it to Zia.
Maybe Michaela?
Oh, Michaela, sorry.
Hi, good morning. Michaela Daffern, she, her pronouns. I live in Capitol Hill and I work in affordable housing policy and planning at the regional scale for King County. And I will pass it to Deanna.
Good morning, Diana Quintana, she, her pronouns. I live in Capitol Hill. For my day job, I'm a multimodal transportation planner. I think it's now turn it over to staff.
I
I'm
think maybe
Robin Bonneville, and my camera does not function, sorry. And I live on Vashon Island and I use she, her, they pronouns. John.
Good morning, everybody. I'm John Hoy. I'm staff to the Planning Commission. I use he, him pronouns. And our executive director, Vanessa Murdoch, and other staff, Olivia Baker, are both out today. And so you have a lean but highly effective staff today.
I'm gonna introduce myself as well. I think I was the one left off. Dylan was I use he, him pronouns. I live in the Central District. I'm an architect and designer at Perkins Eastman, working on mostly multifamily and urban infrastructure projects. Looking forward to the conversation.
All right, great. On the agenda today, we have two items. First, we are going to take action on the Commission's final draft letter on the Centers and Corridors legislation, part of the framework to implement the One Seattle Plan. And then we'll have a briefing by staff on the from OPCD, Office of Planning and Community Development, on the draft Northgate Regional Center Plan. Before we do that, one more item of business. We need to approve the minutes of the March 12th meeting. So first of all, can I get a motion to approve, a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
So moved, Michaela.
For a
Thank you,
second.
Who was the second?
Rose, me.
Oh, Rose. Okay, great. Thanks. It was so fast. Let's see. Does anyone have any changes or amendments? Okay. Then I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions? Also hearing none. Minutes are approved. Okay. We have a couple of commission meetings coming up. Next Housing and Neighborhoods Committee meeting is scheduled for next Thursday, April 2nd, from 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. online via the Teams platform. And our next full commission meeting is scheduled for Thursday, April 9th, from 3 to 5:30 p.m. Okay, John, you have some announcements?
I sure do. Thanks, Matt. So for the benefit of those joining us from the public today online, welcome. As noted before, this is a hybrid meeting of the Seattle Planning Commission. We're meeting both in person here at Seattle City Hall and via the MS Teams virtual platform. I'll review a quick overview of the format of the meeting. During the meeting, there will be opportunities for questions and comments from commissioners, and the commissioners will use the chat function of MS Teams to join the discussion queue, including those joining the meeting in person. I'd like to remind commissioners that the chat function is not for substantive discussion, but rather only to be recognized to speak. Our next agenda item is public comment. We do provide additional options to provide public comment now in person here in Seattle City Hall. We don't have anyone joining us currently. Public comment could be submitted in writing to me via email at least 8 hours before the meeting, and I have not received any public comment this morning or offered on our hybrid meeting platform, MS Teams. If offering comment during the meeting, if you'd like to offer public comment online, please use the raise your hand function in Teams to be recognized to speak. And if you're dialing in by phone, please email me, and that is John, JOHN Hoy, HOEY @seattle.gov, and indicate your name and the phone number you're calling from so you may be recognized to speak. So let's see. Does anyone see if we have any public comment?
I don't see any, John.
Okay. All right, I think we can move on. We have a pretty full agenda for a short morning meeting, so.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. So the first action is to sign off on the Planning Commission's final draft on the centers and corridors legislation. Let's see. The Commission had reviewed a draft letter on the March 12th meeting, and we've been working on this for months. So staff has revised the letter based on the comments of that meeting, and today we hope to approve the final draft and send it to City Council in advance of their first public hearing on this legislation, April 6th. Okay, John, you want to give us a quick rundown?
Sure. Yeah, just we have about a little less than 15 minutes until our presenters from the Office of Planning and Community Development join us. So hopefully we can get this done. So the purpose of this agenda item is to take action and hopefully approve the Planning Commission's final draft comment letter on the centers and corridors legislation. Just a quick reminder of how long we've been working on this. It feels like longer, but it was a pretty condensed, fast and furious review process. Just as a reminder, this is the phase of implementation for the One Seattle Plan that was adopted by the City Council in December of last year. The OPCD released this legislation on January 29th and transmitted it to the City Council. We were first briefed just over a month and a half ago, or exactly a month and a half ago, by OPCD at our February 12th full commission meeting. We had subsequent discussions and working sessions at the February Land Use and Transportation Committee, at the February 26th full commission meeting. We had additional discussion at the early March Housing and Neighborhoods Committee. And then 2 weeks ago today, we reviewed the draft comment letter that we will hopefully be approving today. So I appreciate everybody's comments. 2 weeks ago, I worked to incorporate the comments to the best of our abilities within the timeline. just a few highlights of the comments or the revisions to that draft letter. There was a suggestion from commissioners to reorganize the content to prioritize and emphasize the commission's support for the legislation, high-level comments, and concerns. That content was recommended to be prioritized over any background material, just in order to really bring that to the attention of the readers that will be receiving this on the city council. There was a request to add references within the sentence shops, services, and frequent transit. There was a request to add jobs to that sentence, so that was added wherever applicable. And then in the final section of the letter, there were several comments to clarify the Planning Commission's comments on the distinction between support for housing along frequent transit corridors versus distinguishing the Planning Commission's concerns about concentrating multifamily housing along high traffic arterials and truck routes, and highlighting the trade-offs and the choice and the potential benefits of housing on corridors, but also the impacts and safety and health concerns associated with housing along those high traffic arterials and truck routes. The letter was sent last Friday, so hopefully everyone has had the chance to review it. It actually got shorter, which I appreciate everybody's efforts to consolidate the message. And at this point, we are hopefully ready to approve the final letter today and send it on to the City Council. The City Council has held their first meeting of what they're calling the City Council Select Committee on the Comprehensive Plan to discuss this legislation. That first meeting happened last week on the 19th, and the next meeting of that committee is on April 6th, where they will be holding their first public hearing. And I have heard interest from some commissioners that they would like to provide public comment at that public hearing. And after approval of the letter, I'm happy to work with any commissioners that are interested in providing public comment to work on a 1 to 2 minute comment. As we know, sometimes the comments do get truncated down to 1 minute, depending on volume of public commenters at those public hearings. With that, that's all I have at this point. Hopefully you've all had the chance to review the letter. And I'll turn it back to Matt for any comments and discussion. Matt, do you want to read the language that I provided about what kind of comments we are open to? Or I can do it.
Yeah, let me just find that.
I can do it.
Okay,
I'll do it.
great. Yeah.
I'm toggling between screens.
All right, thank you.
Just as a reminder, in the minutes remaining, as is our standard practice when approving a letter, if you have any proposed edits to the final draft letter, commissioners must present specific text to be considered by the group. We will not entertain any high-level comments about the structure, the content, overall, the tone, or the organization of the letter. We do have only a few minutes for this agenda item before our presenters join us. So, Matt, we need to do a disclosures request, and then I'll let you go into the approval.
Yep, I've got it. Okay, at this time, if there are any commissioners who have any potential conflicts of interest on this topic, let's see if you could disclose those conflicts of interest or recuse yourself from action if you have any direct financial interest. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest? Okay. All right. Okay. I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to approve the letter as drafted. Do I have a motion?
Nick moves.
So moved. Okay. Michaela seconds.
Thank you, Nick and Michaela. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ask for any changes and keep in mind John's context or table setting about they must be minor in form in order to be successfully incorporated at this time. And John, just so you know, I don't have access to the chat, so if there's anybody who's added a comment in the chat, I can't see it.
I'll take a look.
Me, but mine's not about an edit, Matt. Are you also welcoming statements at this time? Like a comment?
I think that well, let's see. I don't want to open the door.
We don't have anyone else in the chat at this point.
Okay. Okay. So I guess in that case, Michaela, if you want to make a brief statement, yes.
I am prepared to vote yes on the letter today. I think as folks know, this has been a compromise or a watered down. What we're saying yes to is a step in the right direction, but it certainly reflects some political negotiations from past elected officials that made it through some decision-making processes at key moments in time and resulted really in sort of the minimum amount that they felt was acceptable. And therefore, we are being asked to embrace it and move it forward and pray and hope that maybe future elected officials will do something different next time. In the meantime, we're in the midst of a housing crisis. We've been in the midst of a housing crisis for more than a decade. And we don't really have time to wait. And so just, I kind of wanted to, before voting on it, I wanted to acknowledge that our elected officials make the decisions they do because communities and people who are impacted by these decisions reach out to them with very real concerns, right? And I think we as commissioners have heard over the course of the past several meetings feedback from community members in West Seattle really concerned about them losing natural light, the additional traffic. We need more housing, but maybe not here. And that is a conversation and a kind of dynamic that plays out time and again, voter by voter when they're talking to their elected officials. And those concerns are real. And but we're making concessions at the expense of future Seattleites who won't have a choice to live in this city if we don't do a lot more about it and we don't all as individuals make room and get a little bit uncomfortable with the drawbacks of growth. And I just also want to remind those who are listening today that growth is not all bad. Additional people in our city mean we have a stronger economy. People who make a range of incomes mean that we have a diversity of neighbors who could be part of our community, who add all sorts of richness and life. And if we do the minimum amount that we're talking about here, it means that we're providing some room for some of those people, but in a way that's not opening up access to all of the neighborhoods in this city, and in a way that is going to reduce their lifespans compared to other parts of where folks can live in single family homes in this city. So I'm prepared to vote yes today, but I'm going on record as saying that I encourage that I'm holding my past, my current, and my future elected officials to account. And I will show up and I will be present in those conversations to help make sure that there's a voice that is saying yes to more density and more places for more people. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michaela. Is there anyone else in the chat, John?
I'm busy typing Michaela's comment, so hold on. I will check.
Okay. Or anyone else could check for me too.
Nope. No one else is in the chat.
Okay. All right. So at this point, I'm going to call for a vote to approve the letter that we have already provided on the centers and corridors legislation. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Okay, great. Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. Any abstentions? Okay, hearing none. Okay. All right, the letter is approved. At this point, we're going to have a briefing on the draft Northgate Regional Center Plan. Let's see. So is Allison and Jesse here?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So today we welcome Allison Miller and Jesse London from the Office of Planning and Community Development to provide an overview of the recently released draft Northgate Regional Center Plan. And let's see, before we get into the weeds on that, I'd like to invite any commissioners to disclose any potential conflicts of interest in this topic or to recuse themselves from the discussion if they have any direct financial interest in this project. Okay. All right, so we have an hour for this agenda item. Welcome, Allison and Jesse. Let's see, please try to leave 20 minutes at the end of your presentation for questions, comments, and discussion. Take it away.
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all again. My name is Jesse London. I'm just going to share my screen quickly simultaneously here. I am the now sole regional centers planner at the Office of Planning and Community Development. And my boss, Allison Miller, the community planning manager, is also here in the background to help me out with questions and any background should that be needed later on. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. So as Matt said, we are here to provide an update on the Northgate Regional Center Plan, and it's the release of the public draft that took place on the 11th, I believe, and a public comment period that lasts until April 10th. This I'll probably mention that at least twice more later in the presentation. So let's see, I was given some strict instructions from Olivia and John about not doing too much background here since y'all have released or I've probably seen the plan at this point, so don't panic. I'm just going to spend like a minute here, but just to set the stage for the rest of the slides, a quick reminder that the regional centers, those are the 7 densest neighborhoods as assigned by the comp plan. The comp plan identifies like a specific housing unit and job growth targets to each of these centers. If you're curious about any of that, you can dig into the comp plan. And these plans are simultaneously required as part of PSRC's Regional Growth Centers program and qualifies the city for some tens or potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in transportation funding for these centers. So we are on a deadline, and obviously it behooves us to take care to plan for these neighborhoods in the first place because they're important, but also there's these regulatory guidelines that we're following simultaneously. Some timeline updates here. This is the I'll share the slides at the end, but if you want to, look at your plan of choice and where that is on its timeline. Northgate is to be adopted late this summer. It's one of a handful of plans to be adopted during this year's comp plan amendment window. Also, downtown is one of those, and then we have our two MIC plans, the Maritime Industrial Centers that I'm sure you're keeping track of as well. That's not in my wheelhouse, but that is something that also needs that comp plan amendment window to accomplish the adoption. So anyways, the Northgate plan, we need to transmit that to council sometime in May. So that's the timeline we're working on, and hence why the public draft is out now. All right, so let's dig in. Northgate Regional Center, quick refresher. This is what it looks like. Obviously, if you've been there, it doesn't look like our other regional centers in many respects. It's less dense. It has larger blocks, relatively poorer walkability. A sea of surface parking, the former mall site, and some mostly vacant office park projects that are just south of that. But we as a department and as a city, we also see opportunities in the neighborhood state of transition that it lives in right now. We can obviously use this plan to influence how that redevelopment affects the neighborhood over time. This is a 20-year plan, so that's the time horizon that we're working with here. And it also has a strong foundation of assets that it currently exists that we can take advantage of. It's centered around that redeveloping mall site. It has obviously the light rail station towards the center of the sub area here. The cluster of medical uses creates a decent jobs base. The Kraken Iceplex similarly also is a major attraction for visitors to the neighborhood. Some critical natural features, the Thornton Creek, Beaver Pond, Barton Woods, etc. And then multiple significant affordable housing projects in the pipeline as well to create that housing base for the center. Engagement, our engagement has, that's taken place for the last couple years now. That's been focused on historically underrepresented groups, particularly at the beginning of the outreach. We held some focus groups with the East African elders, the Idris Mosque, a lot of primarily Asian restaurant workers, an indigenous youth program that operates out of the college campus, focused a lot on students, among other people that we've had struggles reaching historically as a department. So, but we also had multiple rounds of wide-reaching surveys and engaged our more active community groups. We held some pop-ups, interactive posters, things like that in public spaces. And ultimately, a few themes emerged. Obviously, the activity level in the neighborhood is in a transitionary phase with the closure and redevelopment of the mall. So folks are wondering like what is next there, and that ties closely to neighborhood identity and what is the next step for the neighborhood, who is it for in the future. I mentioned walkability already, that was a high priority for our policy language in the plan, and we had to get a little creative with trying to set up the neighborhood for adding green and public spaces that they're currently a little short on in the context of the number of people that are there and how many we expect to be added over the 20-year period. I'll pause also to remind us that as part of our technical work and engagement, we looked closely in collaboration with Tim Lehman, our Indigenous planner here at OPCD, into how to best to use the neighborhood's state of transition and its assets to implement elements of a neighborhood that can serve an urban Indigenous community. We worked with an Indigenous-led consulting firm to develop these three reports on what these elements might be and how that could work in Northgate in particular. These included things like certain housing typologies, services, and in particular, the neighborhood's relationship with the area's natural features. Yeah, let's see. And all of that yielded our North Star here in the plan, the vision statement. I'm not going to read the whole thing word for word, but in summary, we think Northgate has the potential to acquire all of the building blocks of a complete urban neighborhood with all the comprehensive set of amenities, a walkable neighborhood that has plenty of public spaces and provide a diverse set of housing stock and jobs as well. These were the primary themes. These sort of function as chapters in the plan. If you've read it, they'll probably look familiar. Just like in the downtown plan, and like we're going to do with all the other plans, this is the same hierarchy of themes, goals, policies, actions, and just like in the downtown plan, there are 5 themes that we identified based on the primary community feedback themes, and these sort of help us to structure the plan and direct it towards that vision statement that we mentioned in the previous slide. So a neighborhood for all seasons, that means a couple things at once. That's not only about resilience to the seasons of the year in terms of weather and climate change, but it's also about the seasons of life, ranging from youth to our elder residents and workers and visitors. Living with place, that theme is largely about the relationship with the neighborhood's natural environment and ecosystem. Create Northgate, that's about establishing that neighborhood identity I talked about a couple slides ago, and taking advantage of the neighborhood state of transition to try to establish that organically and head in the direction of that native neighborhood identity that we talk about in those reports. Connected communities, that's more or less a transportation exclusive theme that includes SDOT's project lists and policy language. And shared abundance, that's mostly an economic development related theme. There's some housing stuff in there as well. And that's about how folks across the incomes spectrum can all sort of share in the benefits that come from the neighborhood's growth over the coming years that we anticipate. So we received, as a part of a direction for how to present to you guys today, a list of questions from Olivia about that came from you all. So I'm going to try my best to answer those pretty directly here. So the first one, which I, as you could imagine, I was already planning on getting into here. What are some of the big moves that are described in the plan? So I'll start at the high level here, and I hope you have a chance to dig into the plan if you haven't already, to get into the specifics. And I'll get into a few primary examples. But the big picture, we want to add density in housing. Like I said, this doesn't look like a lot of the other centers, and so there's that big TOD opportunity here that we haven't nearly capitalized on. So that's something directionally we want to establish and reinforce in this plan. We want to expand the availability of public spaces. We want to mitigate the neighborhood's existing climate vulnerabilities, like all the impervious surfaces, the heat island effect, the drainage issues, things like that. We want to improve walkability dramatically. We want to mitigate against the issues that that I-5 poses. Obviously, its impacts on connectivity and walkability, but also its environmental impacts, the noise, things like that. And we want to implement the elements of the native neighborhood that we identified through the indigenous consultants and through our indigenous planning work. And then, we want to let's step into a few examples here that are a little bit more concrete. So I think I talked about this the last time I was here, but we have a little bit more bones on this now, and it's actually something we've already started to work on the implementation side of here internally at OPCD with our and in partnership with SDOT and our respective long-range planning teams. So basically, to summarize, we think there's an opportunity here to leverage development demand to expand the transportation network within the neighborhood. This diagram illustrates the how big the blocks are and how much bigger they are than a typical urban neighborhood in the city, and what a hypothetical reconnected grid would look like in the context of this neighborhood. So this is not like, you know, a map that we're like trying to hold to necessarily, but it's just a means of illustration. Although I think in an ideal world over the course of the 20-year period would get something close to this. But just to describe, I should take a step back here and describe really what it is. But basically, you know, we think we can use the land use code to ask developers to build out streets or pedestrian paths through their properties in exchange for the density that they want. You know, we're a little light on detail right now because we're still working on what that land use code language looks like, and we have a lot of front end environmental review and legal work to do before we can write that into the code. But this is something that has appeared conceptually in Northgate neighborhood plans since the 90s, really, and it's time to put pen to paper and make it happen. So that's something that we prioritized. You know, it probably won't succeed quite as pervasively as it's illustrated in this example, but honestly, if we got, you know, half or 2/3 of this over that 20-year period, I would consider that a huge win. Obviously it's dependent on pace of redevelopment, on what we're able to leverage legally in the land use code, and things like that. Much more straightforward item here. This is again something we're working on already on the implementation side here at OPCD. Making strategic zoning changes to add housing and create more destinations, and obviously replace a lot of that vast surface parking and establish that TOD concept that is being underutilized and not really taken advantage of at the center of the neighborhood. So I encourage you to take a deeper look at the future land use map. That's sort of it's much more. It doesn't look like the future land use map for downtown, which was much more of a conceptual land use map about how we wanted each neighborhood and within downtown to function. This one, it looks more like a typical future land use map, which identifies like uses and corridor treatments and things like that. So I encourage you to take a close look at those and on a, you know, lot by lot basis, if you will. The SDOT project list and implementation table more broadly. I'll start with the SDOT portion of this. We've been working closely with SDOT to further their work on the Seattle Transportation Plan that was adopted a couple of years ago and identify some incrementally more specific transportation improvements in key locations. Obviously, the focus was walkability, but there are also plenty of bike and transit improvements that are described here as well. This includes really precise treatments like crosswalks and sidewalks and bike lanes, and we prioritized thinking about ways to make the crossing of I-5 more pleasant and for pedestrians in particular. This item is probably best viewed in the spreadsheet we provide in the appendices on the website. That's where you'll find a consolidated list of all of the action steps that are listed in the plan, and how they are assigned to each of the departments. So that's a much broader list that spans the whole plan, but that includes the transportation-related projects that are assigned to SDOT. I think I might even have its own tab and map, so you can play around with that and provide comments or just see if you think anything is missing. This one is much more highly conceptual, a little heady here. The ecology corridor idea is a means of implementing some of the recommendations from the indigenous consultants and its the neighborhood's relationship to the natural environment. But the on the ground results effectively would be an improved ecological function, particularly benefiting the salmon passageways and the plant life here from Thornton Creek all the way to Barton Woods. That includes some recommendations for a higher density of native trees and plantings in the public right of way along 100th Street. and also along the I-5 corridor, something we've already talked a bit with SDOT and WashDOT about pathways to accomplishing that in the long term, and also the trying to establish a food forest use in the Barton Woods here, which is technically not in the center, but is obviously like a major asset of the Northgate Center. So, and I'll get into a little bit more detail what that means. Again, this is something we're already working on the implementation side of with DON, with OSE, and with North Seattle College. For those of you who don't know, a food forest is a sort of a multi-tiered edible ecosystem that has some historical significance in the context of food production for the Coast Salish peoples regionally, and is something that this Barton Woods site served as many hundreds of years ago at this point. There's a long way to go here. We have some site assessment to do and some collaboration with community organizations that could stand to inherit some funding to implement this project. But also we have some work we want to do with Tim, our Indigenous consultant, to make sure that we're including all of the right amenities and features to make this a successful food forest. So the next question from the team, were there areas, ideas that you struggled to reach consensus on with stakeholders? Yeah, I mean, so first, I think it's possible that some of the same entities that spoke against the general growth strategy in the comp plan, the citywide comp plan at large, and maybe had some similar comp plans or comments on the downtown plan. I think we expect some of those entities to submit some similar comments, but I don't know yet. We'll see. We're only halfway or a little bit more through our comment period, and we have maybe 50 some odd comments and haven't received any official letters from community orgs yet. So that remains to be seen. But the boundary of the center came up a few times. Admittedly, it's kind of an odd shape, and it's kind of a holdover from how it was drawn in the mid 90s. Obviously, there's this weird little reach up to the Med Center in the northwest. So we don't exactly know why that is, but I think it's a fairly safe assumption that it needed the jobs counts to qualify as a center. So that's at least our theory. The omission of the North Seattle College campus, that may have made more sense when the boundary was drawn 30 some odd years ago, and there were the light rail station was still a pipe dream, but it now makes more sense potentially to include that in the longer term. So this is not making adjustments to the boundary was not something we had like the SEPA coverage to address in the immediate term, but it is something that we include in the plan language. An idea that we want to revisit over the next year or so, and simultaneously PSRC may also be gently pushing us in that direction. But if you're paying attention to the growth management board at all, that is a larger conversation that they're having with a number of jurisdictions. So that's going to take a couple months here to unfold. But we're trying to adopt the plan with the shape as is, and then assess over the next year, as I said before. Yes. Oh, yeah. And then very much related to that boundary question is the crossing of I-5. There were definitely some varying ideas about how best to address that, or if it was realistic even to address that in a satisfactory way. But we did our best to put forward the recommendations that maximize the use of the crossings all the way down at 92nd, but also the John Lewis Bridge, the underpass at Northgate Way, and then the First Avenue as it goes up north along I-5, and then cuts to the northwest a little bit at the north end of the sub area. Are there specific areas you think the commission should focus, or where our feedback would be most useful? So first and foremost, we'd love to promote the importance of the plans, both in terms of the regulatory aspects, completing them on time, qualifying the city for the much needed funding, but obviously also more broadly in terms of needing to take the care and the time with each of these critical neighborhoods to make sure we're doing all of the work up front with the community and with the research. And frankly, I'm, as I said at the top of the meeting, I'm now the sole full-time regional centers planner at the city, and we're working on 7 plans all concurrently, which means that Allison and I are effectively working on multiple jobs. So resources are constrained, but we're doing our best to complete these in a timely manner as we started our second phase of plans recently. I'd be interested in hearing ideas about methods for addressing the impacts of I-5 at large, as I mentioned before, not only the crossing of I-5, but also how best to partner with with WashDOT on environmental impacts and noise and things like that, especially with the adjacent light rail station and how much housing and the food forest and things like that we want to basically have abutting this major freeway. This is something that we could stand to think about how best to mitigate. We also struggle to find some existing, like a plethora of existing community orgs that sort of attempt to represent Northgate as a neighborhood. OED, for example, has been working on trying to stand up a BIA, a business improvement area, in a number of neighborhoods, and I think they've kind of struggled with accomplishing that in Northgate. The lack of those kinds of organizations has, I think, created some siloing, some communication barriers between some of the major stakeholders in the area, some mystery about what each party is planning, even adjacent property owners and developers. That's something that these kinds of organizations are meant to do, in addition to like marketing the area and things like that to potential developers and tenants. The BIA issue in particular, I think because there's one single major landowner at the center of the sub area here, I think they already do a lot of the kinds of things that a BIA does for themselves. So maybe that's creating some challenges. I'm speculating a little bit here, but in terms of like the buy-in to that kind of organization. So it's something we need to think creatively about. And, I'd love to add some more language about it in the plan if we can come up with some good ideas. So due to the next question from the team, due to large areas of privately owned land in the regional center, are there challenges in the level of change the city can control through this plan? I think that presented some challenges in terms of providing public services. I think parks was the most obvious example. Finding opportunities in space to add parks when that was one of the things that the community asked for most loudly. That was perhaps the most outstanding example of that. So we had to get a little creative with trying to add policy that steered the plan towards public spaces that weren't explicitly parks, that were more like, using those mid-block corridors that I mentioned earlier to have some treatments for lingering, and in particular the mid-block corridor that's actually already in the code that would stretch from the light rail station to the Thornton Creek Plaza. That's a larger corridor, and I think we're hopeful that could be sort of serve as like a central plaza type of experience for folks. But that's it's not the same thing as a park that a more traditional park that has playground, sports fields, things like that. So that was a tough thing to talk about in this plan. But at the same time, there's also more of an opportunity to influence the built environment here than in Northgate than in any other center. It's the degree of likely redevelopment in the near or medium term is an opportunity to influence the land use codes before that wave of development. So that makes that future land use map I mentioned earlier pretty important in this plan relative to other plans. One step after that, this gives us an opportunity to leverage that demand for public benefits through the zoning code. Our Seattle mixed zone, for example, usually leverages some type of public benefit as well. So that's something that if we apply more widely here, that we can get things like public space or certain size units or things like that. There's a lot of different examples of that throughout the city. I think the U District example has a pretty wide array of options that that we provide developers to in terms of public benefits in exchange for density. Yeah, and it also means that the neighborhood's current transitionary state also means that transportation and other infrastructure investments that we make now have a bigger influence on development at a more foundational level. Obviously it's a chicken or egg conversation, but we think that making that those investments earlier, that sort of influences having a strong foundation of transit, pedestrian, bike network, that's going to influence what kind, how much parking, folks want to build on their apartment development projects and things like that. So that just as an example. So that's something we hope to influence through the plan and subsequent legislation. And I think, is this the last one? It is, yes. So what did conversations around the future of the mall site look like? Were you able to have conversations with private developers there? Yeah, so Simon is the owner of the mall site. They, this is not going to be the most satisfying answer. They're relatively coy in there for a number of reasons about their project. They have a pretty set in stone master plan development for the entire site. And this MPD was entitled pre-MHA strategically, so they are extremely disincentivized from straying from that plan, so as they're not exposed to those requirements. But with that being said, there have been a number of developments since that MPD was entitled back in 2017, 2018 or whatever it was. Obviously COVID's happened since then, so I think it's safe to assume that probably had an impact on the general optimism about the multiple office sites that they had entitled in their MPD. The Kraken facility is obviously taken off. They have over 1 million visitors a year, and I think that how do I say this? That probably influences how their new umbrella organization might function within the site in the future, and their interest in future operations throughout that property will go. If you're following the news at all around the Kraken, you might pick up what I'm putting down, but I'll actually probably stop there. That's I think will change the face of the site if all goes to plan on their end. So I'll wrap here with some next steps and open up to questions here. I think it was a good half hour for that. Like I said, we released the plan on the 11th, 30-day public comment period that'll end on the 10th of April. We will have our SEPA documents posted sometime in the next week. If you're an environmental review nerd and more interested in commenting on that rather than on the plan itself. And we hope to transmit to council in May, like I said, and adopt during our annual comp plan amendment window, the first under this comp plan, and that would be in September, along with a number of other pieces of legislation that needs to fit within that window. So yeah, I will pause there. There are more questions or discussion. I'll stop sharing screen.
Great. Thank you, Jesse. Let's see. So I don't know if someone can assist me with if there are hands up in the chat.
This is in the queue.
Yeah, who's in the queue?
Rose.
It's me.
Okay, Rose, go for it.
Yeah, so I'm actually within the regional center, so my comments are kind of based on actual lived experience.
Mm-hmm.
So for I-5 crossings, and this is like visioning, dreaming, like I think that when the pedestrian bridge went in between the community college and the light rail station, it significantly improved my life because previous to that, walking under the I-5 underpass felt very unsafe. So I think like when you're focusing on things like how to cross that I-5 barrier, like focusing on ways to make it feel welcoming and inviting for everyone, whether you start with the existing underpass crossing because it's already there, or whether you consider maybe, I don't know, another overpass crossing that helps bridge the gap for communities north of Northgate Way, that would be really cool. In terms of citing and incentivizing to deal with I-5 pollution, I think that's a little more complicated because it requires probably a lot of cooperation with WashDOT as well to get into things like, is it possible to coordinate with WashDOT to get some sound walls in, like some actual barriers that are better than what is there or not there today? And then something that I think about a lot on my walks is there's a lot of open parking lots that they don't need to be parking lots. And so I'd love to see if there were some incentives by the city to convert parking lots into raised parking structures that also allow removing pavement, because I see so many areas where I'm like, wow, that's like a total empty dead space and it doesn't need to be. So those are some ideas I have, and some of those major parking lots are along the I-5 corridor. So if you were, for example, to incentivize ripping up pavement and putting in trees, that helps provide that buffer and that barrier.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Rose.
Are there other people in the queue? Okay.
Looks like Dylan is in the queue.
Okay, thank you. Dylan.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation and the summary. There's a lot to it, and it's difficult to squeeze it in a half hour for sure. So, but wanted to dig in a little deeper on the kind of how your team plans to address displacement in the area, specifically like small business displacement. I know there is a dedicated section on this, and looks like there's been a lot of thought put into it. I was just wondering if you could kind of high level touch on that and your approach to to the best of our abilities, maintaining and enabling existing businesses to be able to stay put if they so choose, and what strategies you guys have developed. Um, and yeah, just be able to talk on that a little bit, and maybe if there's a link to kind of similar to what's happened with Africa Town in the Central District. It sounded like there's an interest in developing community groups that could perhaps be a part of creating, I guess that ability and that assistance for some of these businesses to stay put, maybe beyond just a business improvement area. And so, yeah, just curious, kind of if you could high level kind of touch on some of the strategies and the approach to mitigating small business displacement from the region as it grows.
Yeah, that's a good question. So well, first displacement at large on the residential side, we were like, our focus was, our strategy was like, if we can create higher paying jobs, we can create make it easier for folks to be able to stand up to the like increasing rents that we anticipate for the area. So there's a little bit of like a balancing act here to be done. And then on the commercial side, yeah, I mean the community orgs approach, a BIA. I agree that's a BIA does a lot of things, but that's tends to not be something that they're equipped to do, at least from a resources standpoint, to be able to subsidize or establish programs that keep these small businesses in place. So I think it's going to have to be an alternative program. We talked a little bit in the plan about what's it called? The name is escaping me, but like a collective of some sort that can function as a community funded entity that can be more in control of rents that are not at market rate and allows some of those businesses to hang out in the longer term. We talked about that a little bit on the on the indigenous planning side as well. Those types of developments, we wanted them to be all inclusive, both in terms of like housing, but also like amenities and services, which includes businesses and retail. And I think that's, it's a really ambitious thought and requires a strong community partner and a lot of resources to make it work. And so we're a long way from, implementing something like that, but it's like, it's a similar model of having a community entity that's funded by an assessment of the local area, but then again is providing like a subsidized rent structure that allows those businesses to that the community expressly desires it just to serve their specific resident population to remain in the neighborhood. I think that's again, this isn't like this is a long-term thing, and it's not the most like satisfying answer that we have for like in terms of like a long-range plan. There's a lot of work to do with entities like OED to make it happen. And I myself I need to revisit like that what that action list that I talk about from the implementation table in the appendices of this plan, and the kind of the to-do list that makes for us, and what the first couple of steps are that will make those programs a reality. But there's still a lot to be done.
Who's next on the queue?
Michaela.
That's me.
Michaela,
Jesse, hi. Thank you
Yep.
for your presentation. I really appreciate the way you approach this briefing. And more so, I'm very appreciative of the approach that this specific sub-area plan has taken. When you read off the kind of goals and vision and priorities for Northgate, those are things I'd love to see in all. That's the way I would love to see all of our sub-area plans organized in that manner. It's a very pro-equity, very nature and human centered list of goals, and just really, really, really excited. I used to work for the Capital Eco District, and so I did all of this. Like I have that experience of having to self-fund, go out and fundraise to try and figure out how we could continue to provide services to the community. And we were sort of organizing the residents of the neighborhood, and then we were pitted against, in some cases, the business community in Capitol Hill. And I observed our business community really struggle to expand BIAs. I think that they're very politically challenging, depending on the context and the land ownership. It can be really difficult to get them passed. And ultimately, our business community is the one who ends up having to pay the costs to create these business centers that we all love to shop and eat and dine in and all that. And some places they can pass them and some places they can't. And I think some of the answers to your questions are really fundamentally like point to some of the fundamental challenges that the city wants to partner with community, but in some places the right ingredients don't exist for really strong community-based organizations. And to create them out of thin air is difficult if they don't have some sort of revenue stream coming in. maybe you need to be thinking, maybe we as Seattleites need to be thinking way bigger and more boldly about how we fund things in our neighborhoods that we take for granted, like graffiti removal, like community meeting spaces where folks can, like, for very low or no cost, hold a meeting. Garbage collection services, you know, those garbage cans that you see out on streets, the planters that hang up above them. These are all things we benefit from. And our small business communities and these little micro areas may not have the economies of scale or the right conditions to be able to make them happen. And so I know OED's always trying to sort of push the limits on this. That some of the things you've just mentioned, I think, are so cool. Maybe they need to operate at a citywide scale, and then there could be some sort of cross subsidization between different neighborhoods, where the funds could be raised and then deployed where there is demand. And Department of Neighborhood should be a partner in all this. I think they probably are. But in order for them to be able to do what it is that we genuinely need, we need way more resources and flexible resources that can be deployed for things that are not considered necessarily eligible uses under existing regulatory structures. So I appreciate the question. And I think it's not something you're going to solve in the near term. And it really needs to be like an intentional funded focus of the future implementation of the sub-area plan, if it's going to happen. And probably our existing toolkit is far insufficient to really develop the community first before there is a strong mix of both residents and stabilized and diverse small businesses operating in that area. Anyway, yeah, it's the hardest question you asked today, I think, is how do you do that?
Yeah. I mean, really speaking my language, I on a personal level, I was the planning manager for a bid for a business improvement district on the East Coast, and I have, since moving back here, I've so many thoughts on like what I would do to rebuild like the BIA program that are like way above my pay grade. But you know, yeah, something that I like thinking about. So
Yeah.
but you're right. There's a lot of shortcomings there too.
Let's see. John, do we have more folks in the queue?
Looks like Deanna.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse, so much. I was trying to look at the appendix on the plan, and I think something that I was curious. I have two quick questions. First, from your slide, and I was trying to kind of reconcile with to see if there was more information in the appendix. But in your slide, there's an area in that map that says corridor improvements in kind of a light gray dash. And I was trying to find that language in the appendix, and I'm not seeing it. Could you explain what is meant by corridor improvements in those gray dashed areas?
Let me see if I can find what you're talking about here. It was in the
in that slide that you had.
The future land use map slide, or the
no, on the transportation connections.
The S.1.
The
yes.
S.dot slide.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know it off the top of my head. That's like an S.dot written section. It's let's see.
Oh, don't worry. And perhaps we could circle back, or if you could it's just that specific language, corridor improvements, is not very evident.
It's very
in the what I was saying. Yeah, it's not kind of like like specifically available in the appendix. So just curious if there was kind of an interpretation, since I couldn't do a search, corridor improvements and what does it mean? So that was one question, just because it's showing kind of like that's big investments.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I didn't include like the full legend on that slide because it's a little text heavy. But if you go to page 77 on the plan itself, it's the page before that map. it defines what all of the things in the legend are. So that includes corridor improvements and the crossing operations and sideways or sidewalks and walkways, et cetera. So hopefully that'll help orient
In the actual
you all.
plan, not in the appendix, because I was looking at the appendix.
Yeah, I don't remember if it's in the appendix or not. If it is, it would be in the Excel spreadsheet that we uploaded and on the map tab. So it's a little confusing because the plan we didn't want to provide all of the same level of detail as what's in the appendix. So
that's okay.
We're doing a bit of a summary there. So yeah, you could look at either and get the same type of information, but I think there is more detail in the appendix.
Okay. Yeah, I just couldn't find what it meant, but I will look into that. And then the second question was, when looking at the appendix and, the sections that I know the transportation plan, how it's organized, which is the vehicular network. We have ped, bike, transit, et cetera, and then the vehicular network. And in the vehicular network is where we also typically capture some of the parking, there's actually a different section, not in the vehicular network, that addresses parking. The section on parking in the appendix is a paragraph long. And so I was just curious because it doesn't appear like there's information here that establishes the baseline parking supply, which would be very valuable to understand in terms of what you were saying. Is like it's impossible to right now until you have actually development happen to estimate the actual amount of parking stops in the regional center. But I think it is helpful to understand the baseline supply so that at least, the development goal, right, should dramatically decrease the number of parking supply provided today. And that would be a very successful metric to show that this community is truly transit oriented. And more multimodal, right? And aimed at mode shift. So something that I know it's challenging, but at least is established in the Seattle Transportation Plan, is that every neighborhood and every center in our city should try to align to mode shift goals. So if the city as a whole is hoping to have a mode shift potential of, 6 out of 10 trips in the city should not be done by car, right? Give the travel choice so people don't have to travel by car. I am curious if we're providing, part of that intent of mode shift is aligned with how many cars we invite to the area. And those invitations, and I know that sounds a little bit fluffy, but every parking stall is an invitation for a car. And so we need to make sure we're reducing those invitations because we're actually giving travel choice by having the light rail, having bus routes, having bike facilities, hopefully increasing our sidewalks. So all of that is there. The connection side of the plan is there. The travel demand management side of the plan is completely absent as I'm reviewing it. And I would really welcome a perspective on these regional centers to be outcome based on the actual mobility performance outcomes we hope to see when growth happens. And that means changing mode shift. That means changing parking and managing parking, right? And so that's just a comment to hopefully see if there's an opportunity to both track that, measure that, and set goals around in terms of parking supply, in terms of vehicle miles traveled for the regional center. I think that would be incredibly helpful to center from like the technical aspect of perspective, and then figure out ways to communicate that to the community. I know how hard it is to make some of these very wonky technical terms mean something to communities, but it just means that is what's going to make this center feel like a like a rest, kind of like a place where people live, not where people just are going through, and so I just wanted to add that, since I saw how important in shaping the future of the center parking is to that, and how little information there is around it in this appendix.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I conceptually agree with all of that. I think that there were a couple of limitations here. I mean, first of all, I'll say that in terms of mode split, so PSRC did require us to establish a mode split goal. I'm just perusing the plan now, and I can't find it for whatever reason, but so that does exist somewhere, either here or in the transportation appendix, and that sort of stems from the larger mode split goal in the comp plan, and then makes the assumption that all of our regional centers, because they have a more density and higher capacity transit, and a theoretically more multimodal transportation network, the more ambitious mode split goals for each of those centers. So that is something that exists.
I see it now. It's
yeah, okay,
mode share, and it does allude to it. I'm just trying to see how it links to how that was then measured for the development. But yes, okay.
Sure. Yes. And so, but I mean, point taken, absolutely, about the supply of parking, needing to influence the demand side of that equation in order to get the outcomes we want. Obviously, big picture, that is the goal of the neighborhood. In terms of like data, so SDOT really only does like a supply counts on a regular basis for a few neighborhoods, and they're all downtown or around downtown. So those are harder to come by up north, obviously, and that wasn't something that that our SDOT portion of our team had the resources to accomplish this time around. But I agree that would be a really instrumental piece of this. I'll also note that as we were working on this plan, the bridge housing affordable housing project on the King County site across the street from the movie theater, between the movie theater and the transit station, they're on like 100th and 3rd or something like that. That site was built with no on-site parking, and as they were building it, they were vocally like living to regret that decision. They were trying to rent off-site parking from other sites that had been underutilized, which it sort of served as a reminder to us that like we were trying to build this multimodal transit-oriented neighborhood, but that the reality of what Northgate is today was still kind of getting in the way of that. So it's something that like will take a few waves of development and infrastructure investment before we're seeing the results on the demand side of the equation that you talk about that we want. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting part of that experience.
Right. Thank you, Jesse.
John, is there anyone else on the list?
Rose had a comment, it seemed, to my comment.
Yeah, and this is kind of addressed to the whole commission as well. I know we have a stance of try to get as car-free as possible, but I'm going to throw in a counterpoint because I think it's important. Northgate as a regional center does not exclusively serve Seattle. And I bring that up because when we talk about removing available parking spaces, that is not going to serve Northgate, because Northgate is where some of the hospitals are. It's where we have access to a light rail station. And the reality that we live in is that we cannot wave a wand and say there are no cars. So I guess it's not so much a counterpoint as a reminder that Northgate is not like other parts of Seattle. And if anything, I think what will serve Northgate better looking forward is figuring out what parts of the Northgate Regional Center can we actually implement a parking space reduction strategy, and which we need to focus on traffic flow, safe crossings, compatible modes of transit, because again, like, it's not just serving Seattle. It's a place that people come to from outside of the city to get access to essential services that they do not have in their communities. So I just wanted to raise that tension too.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Okay, we are at 8:59. So I am going to close the comments at this point. Thank you, Jesse, for your presentation and the time answering the questions. Yeah, it's obviously a ton of work and at breakneck pace, and I wish you more resources and personnel for which to do your work. Thank you for coming today. Thank you, commissioners, and we'll see some of you on April 6th at the testimony for the centers and corridors legislation at City Council. Thank you all. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Matt.